Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and I do fountain pen reviews, and every now and then I break out the old test pen and do an ink review, and that's what we're going to do today. This is Birmingham Pen Company's Electron, and it's a blue ink with some really cool characteristics. And I really I'm a fan of Birmingham Pen Company. They are a family-run business in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I have one of their pens, and it is awesome. I will review that in the not too distant future. But their inks, I really do like their ink. So let's flip that camera. We'll do an ink test, and I will share with you what I think about their Electron Blue, although I think I may have already given you a hint on whether or not I like it. Okay, so as you can see, I've already got part of the testing done for this Electron Blue from Birmingham Pens, and that's not on purpose. I thought that the camera was recording, and I have a different setup today for this, and I can't actually see the timer, so I didn't know that it wasn't going. So at least there's still some of this test to do where you can see it as it happens. So this up here is with my glass dip pen, which I use to test inks. I like to do that because it just gives me a consistent medium for the ink. And as you can see, it writes a bit broadly and a little wet, and it brings out some of the characteristics of the ink. However, I wrote this with the Hongdian Light of Hope, which is a fine nib, and fine often doesn't show as much character in an ink as a broader nib might. But I think it actually shows off the shading of this ink very, very well, and even better than that fairly wet dip pen. So then I used the trusty Q-tip to do a swab here, and I used the swab to do the swab. And now you can see the shading of the ink, and it's just a really good looking blue. So if you were using it for something, maybe artwork not in a fountain pen, that gives you an idea of how that would perform. And it's a really nice blue, and it's something that is definitely not just a boring blue. It has a little bit of life to it, and I like that about it. So now what we're going to do are dry times and a water test, and hopefully it is actually working. So here is the 5-second, and it dried that much. Really surprised by that. Now for the 10-second test. Not surprising, and I think you realize that the 20-second test is probably going to be pretty dry. And I think the 30-second test probably is not going to matter too much, as dry as that was at 20 seconds. Okay, so at 30 seconds, it really is mostly dry and not very wet at all, and that's really quite wet. To give you an idea, actually, let me show you something. One of the characteristics of this ink is that it does go through and go some on the other side. So this is Rhodia paper, dot grid paper. A lot of you are familiar with that, and you see what happened. It is, when I said it was a wet ink, that's what I'm saying, because when it first comes out, it goes on wet, and you could see that. I wish I had the film. Well, let me just do it again. You can see that with this dip pen, that when it first goes on, it's pretty wet, and that didn't get through so much because I spread it out. But if you let it sit very long, it will go through with some pens. So this is the glass dip pen, and you can see it ghosted all across the page. This is that Hongdian, and still you see that it does come through Rhodia paper a bit in intersections here on the grid, and certainly when I did the sample for the drying test, and you can see that a couple of those even went through the next page. So I have learned with this ink, I really, really like it, but I have to It's a one-side of the paper ink. You're not going to write on both sides with most papers with this ink. Now, I haven't tried it with Tomoe River paper. I have some around here somewhere, but not handy. But Rhodia, certainly a notepad like the good CVS Vietnamese notepads. This ink is still going to go through that paper some, where other inks will not. So that's just something to be aware of. If you cannot use an ink that goes through, then keep that in mind. But if that doesn't bother you and you're a one side of the sheet person already anyway, then that's not gonna be a problem for you. All right, got my handy dandy ink syringe here. Hopefully I won't just make a huge mess like I did last time. And as you can see, not surprisingly, a lot of inks are not very water fast. Certainly you see that ink coming up out of that paper, and that has actually been dry probably for most of an hour. Let's dry that up, and you can see kind of how that behaved. So, ink spread around, plenty came off on the paper, of course. And so I wouldn't consider that a water-fast ink, would you? It's definitely not bulletproof. Just keep that in mind as you use it. So what are my impressions of this ink? And I will tell you this. One, I really like that it has a lot of color variation. That's often what people want in an ink, especially one that is a really nice, vibrant color. It is one that I find to be well saturated. And what I like is that it's well saturated, and yet it has some nice light lines. Like, see how it lightens up when I wrote quickly, that line across, or here in figure 8s. So it gives you shading, and yet it's nice and well saturated. I think that dry time is really quite good. And so that for me is a plus. And it is one that is going to do some ghosting on the other side. Now that's, of course, not a plus, or at least I don't think so. I don't know anybody who would find a reason to want to do that. So that's going to be a negative. These are definitely all pluses. So it's an ink that I really have enjoyed, and it is it's a cool match for the Light of Hope pen. If you're looking for something that goes in there that has a really cool match to that, especially as you write with it. Now that swab is a lot lighter, but as you can see, most of the time when it goes on, at least with this fine, it's going to be just a bit darker. I really like it. It has good variation. It's just a color that I like. It dries pretty quickly. Just be careful of water, and be careful of the other side of that page, because you are going to get just a little bit of bleed through, and definite ghosting and a little bit of bleed through. That's the term I'm looking for there. Other than that, I really like it. I love that it comes from two brothers and their family in Pittsburgh, and I'd like to support local businesses like that, local to Pittsburgh, but you know what I mean, small business. And so for that, it is also really cool. And I will say that I think they charge a reasonable price for it. I think this is a 30 milliliter bottle. I got this in a box with some other things that I'd ordered, a pen and some other ink, and this was actually thrown in there, I think, because of the delay I had in the pen coming to me, which I wasn't even worried about, so that was just very nice of them to do. But I think they're $9 for 30 milliliters the last time that I checked. They have several other colors. Check out Birmingham pens, and definitely check out the Electron blue ink. I really, really like this ink. It's got a life to it that's just kind of cool. And well, God bless you. Have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll see you later with a pen review.